Hello everyone and welcome to this channel. In today's video we will see how to create ASP.NET Core Web API with Entity Framework Core. In this tutorial I'll be using Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition, Entity Framework Core 6.0 and above. I'll be using SQL Server 2019 Community Edition. For this video we will be using Entity Framework Core database first approach, where we will be using an existing SQL Server database to scaffold the required entities. There are two ways to scaffold the SQL Server database. First is the standard method, reverse engineering, where we use the package manager console in Visual Studio and execute a set of commands. Second is to use tools and extensions. As you can see here, there are a set of tools and extensions that are available in Visual Studio to connect to the SQL database and scaffold the required entities. We will be using EF Core Power Tools in this tutorial. A little brief about Entity Framework Core. As most of you might know, Entity Framework Core is an ORM, Object Relational Mapping Framework, that helps us to represent a database into object-oriented programming model in the .NET Core ecosystem, thus helping us to interact and perform CRUD operations on relational database without any hassle. Entity Framework Core brings a higher level of abstraction and helps in creating data-oriented applications with less code in a much efficient way. So let's get started. First, we'll start by installing the EF Core Power Tools. For this, open the browser, search for EF Core Power Tools Marketplace. The first link would take you to the EF Core Power Tools website. This is an extension for Visual Studio. So download the extension. Once downloaded, double click the extension and follow the wizard to complete the installation. This will add an extension in Visual Studio. Next, I'll walk you through my the SQL Server database. For this tutorial, I'll be using the ERP_database, where I have two tables, employee and countries table. The employee table has 4 columns: ID, first name, last name and email. We will be using EF Core Power Tools to connect to the SQL Server database and scaffold the employee table and generate entities in Visual Studio. Next, we will create ASP.NET Web API project in Visual Studio. So let's start Visual Studio. Click on File, New, Project. Usually whenever I'm doing projects, I start with a blank solution, so that based on the type of project I want to do, whether it's an ASP.NET Web API project, ASP.NET project, web project, or any core console project, I can add the projects to the blank solution. So I usually select blank solution, and then next I give a name to the blank solution. So in this case I'll give ASP.NET Core Demo. I'll give a name this and I'll click on create. So the blank solution is created. Next, we'll be creating ASP.NET Core Web API project. For creating an ASP.NET Core Web API project, right click on the solution, click add new project, select the ASP.NET Core Web API template. In case you don't see the ASP.NET Core Web API template, from the drop down select Web API, select the ASP.NET Core Web API template, click on next, your name to your project, and click next. On the additional information page, keep the default settings. Here you can see we are using .NET 6.0 framework, so click on create. Once the project is created, do a quick test by running the project locally by pressing F5 or click on the run button. The project will build, and once the application starts, the default browser will start and you will see the default API Swagger documentation. Here you are seeing the web forecast API, get API. You can try it out. Click on try it out button, then click on execute, and here you see the response data back. So the API is working correctly and the API project is set up correctly. Note the web forecast project and the API is the default API provided by ASP.NET Core Web API template. This is not created by us. We need to create an employee endpoint. So let's go back to the project, stop the project, and we will delete the web forecast.cs and the web forecast controller. So right click on the web forecast, delete, then web forecast controller, delete. Next we will connect the SQL Server database using the EF Core Power Tools. To use the EF Core Power Tools, right click on the project, select EF Core Power Tools and select Reverse Engineer. You will see I'm already connected to my local SQL Server database. I'll remove that. Click on Add Database Connection, select SQL Server, click Continue. It will ask me for the server name. Server name you can get it from your local SQL Server database. Copy the name and paste it here. Once you paste the server name, you will see the list of databases that are under this server. Select ERPDB in my case and test the connection. And test connection is succeeded. Click OK. Keep the EF Core 6 option selected by default and click OK. This will pop up the database objects related to that database. In my case, there is only two tables, countries and employee. I don't have any views or stored procedures. So the database objects window will show only the tables. I'll select the employee table and click OK. You will get the generate EF Core model window. Here you can keep the default information and click OK, or you can change as per your requirement. I'm changing the context name to employee context. I'm keeping the namespace as it is, the web API demo. Models is the folder. You can change the name. Is the folder where the auto-generated DB context file and the employee entity file will be created. I would recommend other two options: pluralize or singularize the generated object names, check mark, and then use table column name directly from the database. These are optional. If you select, you will get the exact table name and the column names that you have defined in the database. In my case, it's employee and the column names. So then click on OK. This will auto generate the DB context and the entities under the models folder. Here you can see the employees entity and the employee context file. The EF Core Power Tools will additionally create one more file. It's called Power Tools README index. It has instructions to follow to connect the DB context with the SQL Server. So the first is register your data context in your program.cs file. So copy this line, open the program.cs, paste it here, save it. Save. Next, you need to add the connection string to your configuration file, appsetting.deployment, appsetting.json or secret.json. So copy the connection string, and open the appsetting.json. paste it here and save the file. So we have registered our data context class in our program.cs, and we are connecting our DB context with the connection string. Next, we have the connection string set up here. We have added it to the app settings.json. So this completes the connectivity of the context file with the application. So we'll close this file, program.cs file, context file, and the employee. Now we'll create a new controller to represent the employees endpoint that will allow the get, post, and delete operations to be done on the SQL Server database through Entity Framework Core. So before we add the controller, we need to add two NuGet packages to use in our controller. So for that, we go expand the dependencies folder, expand the packages, right click on it, manage new packages, select the browse option, and select Microsoft.Entity Framework. Select the Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. You can select the latest option and click on install. Next, you will select the Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. Select the option, select the latest stable version, and click install. Here you can see we have installed Microsoft.Entity Framework Core package and Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server package. So close the NuGet package. Now we'll add the controller. To add the controller, right click on the controllers folder, click on add controller. By default, MVC is selected, but we are creating an API, so select the API option and click on API controller.empty. Click on add and add the controller name. We are creating the employee controller, so employee. Add. So the employee controller is created. Now we need to add the employee endpoints. So first we need to add the reference to Entity Framework. Next, we'll create a variable of the DB context. Note, I'm keeping this tutorial simple to explain the concept and how to consume the DB context within the API controller. You can additionally add repository pattern to abstract DB interactions logic from the controller to a common place. Add the constructor, check the employee context. Next we'll create the get API. So the first thing is we'll add an attribute HTTP GET. So here we are getting the connecting the contacts, employee contacts and employees, and getting the list of all the employees. If employees are not found here, then we are returning not found, else we are returning okay, and the list of employees. Save the code, this, then do a build. And now the controller is ready. To test the controller, run the application. The default browser will run. And here you will see the Swagger documentation with the employee API. This is the get employee API. You can try it out. Click on execute. And here you get the list of employees as a response back. So you can see the same here. Right click, select 1000, and this is the result. King, yeah, Gocha. So we have successfully able to connect the SQL Server database using Entity Framework and DB Context. And for this we have used the EF Core tools. Similarly, we can write the other endpoints for post, and delete. Hope you will try this and let me know in comments if you have any difficulties in creating this tutorial. Thank you.